said your husband was up at 3 in the morning watching NBA. I'm gonna tell you something. That was me last night. It'll probably be me tonight. New York is playing tonight. But it got me to thinking about media rights and revenue streams. And so for the BAL, is there a Knicks fan? Is it a traditional model where it's media rights, it's merchandising, it's tourism? How is it structured here, and what's the plan for scalability for that?
Thank you. So mainly four ways that leagues like ours can monetize, and I think the more common one for African, for our league, is sponsorship and marketing partnerships. And that's why you see some of the partnerships we have here: ServiceNow, Visit Rwanda, Afreximbank, and Rwanda. So yes, sponsorship and marketing rights, and using our platform that we give to market products and services. We have overall NBA has over 1 billion fans. Within Africa, we have millions. We have 1.2 billion impressions in the last season. And when you look at our social media platforms, we have a big reach. So that reach allows partners like ours to really access the funds that we have, and that's how we monetize one way. The other one is merchandise. And the good news is that we just opened an e-commerce portal. It's called balstore.nba.com, where you can buy merchandise from anywhere using our e-commerce platform. Now, we know that the market, not just in Africa, but also especially the African diaspora all over the world, has been looking to own something with BAL whenever they interact with it. We saw pictures last year of season 4 with a family in Brazil walking around with BAL, and we wondered where they got the BAL merchandise. We've seen pictures in Heathrow where people crossing security and they're wearing BAL. And those anecdotes showed us that there's really appetite for consuming BAL beyond the African market, but also especially the African diaspora all over the world, who are really big. In fact, one of the statistics that a colleague of mine shared with me is if you take out China and India, the African diaspora is the third country in terms of population globally. So interacting with that market as part of what we have to offer as BAL continues to be important for us. The third one is ticketing. When you come to watch games, every year we see ticketing revenues go up because more and more fans are coming to watch our games and paying to watch our games, and that has been really important as well. Now, the media market, obviously as well, is a big part of sports leagues. It's a growing aspect in Africa. Whether it's pay TV, it's still very limited in terms of the coverage. Free-to-air, many of the free-to-air broadcasters are national and therefore kind of free access in the countries where they serve. But we see that changing. And I think when you say, what does the future look like? One of the areas we see the future changing is very much around what Luol talked about, which is integrating markets in Africa. I think the more integrated markets are, the more integrated services are, the more integrated we can be, the more you can actually use platforms to provide, whether it's streaming or broadcasting to markets across the continent. Now, people like to say we need to integrate Africa more, and we really do need to. We've talked about the African Continental Free Trade Area. It's a big aspiration to really break down all these barriers so we can trade as one market. But a lot has to be done for that to happen, and I think Luol touched on a couple of those. How do you register business in Rwanda and be able to give your services across the 54 countries? That's not happening yet today. How do you get a license to broadcast in one country and broadcast in many countries so you can actually access a much bigger market on the continent? Those kinds of things need to be solved so that we can actually provide services across the continent. The good news, I think, especially for media rights, is what we see in some of what the telcos are doing. If you give an example of MTN, 300 million subscribers across the continent, I know that they're thinking about using that platform that already is connected by subscription all over the continent to provide content such as content that we would be interested in. So I think that's going to change, and I think we're going to see more access to media, more media integration, and media contributing a lot more than we're seeing today. And for me, the future is bright.
Claire, just to piggyback on that, you talked about the challenges as far as only having 5 arenas in continent Africa, and obviously that makes it difficult to expand. But when you're looking at expanding to either having different teams or just a focus in a different area, what are some of the top areas on the continent that you guys have on your board as far as you want to have more expansion in?
Well, we would like to be in all the countries in Africa if we could. But today we play in 4 countries, but we have 12 teams that play. So ideally, in those 12, those 12 teams should be representing countries that we have that there's interest in playing in. But beyond the 12, even before we get the qualifiers for the 12, we have the road to BAL. A lot more countries actually participate. So actually countries that are participating in the wider community that BAL brings together is more than 4 countries that host, is more than 12 teams that play. It's a lot more, if you come from the qualification road to BAL until the final competitions. And so our goal is to work with as many countries as possible that wish to be part of this story. And they're there. Every day we get, as I said, I know Nigeria is building an arena. Benin is building an arena. We were in Morocco for the first time after Egypt. We are going to South Africa. The many countries, Kenya, for example, we have an office in Kenya, and the Nairobi City Thunders came, for the first time representing Kenya in the BAL. And so Uganda had a team, City Oilers, that has been coming for the last seasons. So there's potential in a lot more countries. I think the question is, how do we work with investors? How do we work with the governments to put in place that environment of infrastructure that could allow this to happen? The good news is that every year as we grow and we see the impact of BAL, we get more interest, including from development financial institutions like Afrexim Bank, AFDB. We've seen investors come to us and say, what does it take to build an arena? Who do we build an arena for? And I think that's going to change. I really think that over the next 5 years, you're going to see a lot more standardized arenas than you've seen today, and that's going to allow us to play in as many countries as we could. Our goal is to have many countries come to be part of the BAL experience.